It's finally here. I'm ranking every single episode of What's New Scooby Doo. I usually only do the top 10, but I have thoughts on pretty much all of these episodes, so I decided I'd include them all. I'll run through them quickly though, so as to not make this video too long. Number 42 is The Vampire Strikes Back. Hex Girls or no Hex Girls, this episode is boring. They try to change up the typical mystery solving format by catching the culprit early, but it doesn't work out. The mystery is gimmicky and the setting is unremarkable, but at least there's a good chase. Number 41 is Gold Paw. I'm a big fan of the third season of the show, but even I have to admit that this one misses the mark. The monster is cool, but again the setting leaves much to be desired, and the reason why the culprit did what he did is incredibly stupid. Number 40 is Big Appetite in Little Tokyo. I thought this episode was really cool as a kid, but now though I can see that it's another failed attempt at trying to mix up the formula. But I do love the idea of Shaggy being potentially the monster, but I don't love the execution. Number 39 is It's All Greek to Scooby. This episode's just a subpar version of a normal episode. It's entertaining enough, but I feel like nothing stands out enough to elevate the episode. Number 38 is Large Dragon at Large. I'm not the biggest fan of having oversized monsters, and this is a perfect example why. The dragon is incredibly generic looking, and after watching the Mystery Incorporated episode Grasp of the Gnome, I'm more aware of how the medieval fair setting is underutilized in this one. Number 37 is The Fast and the Wormius. This episode feels like it needed some more development. The idea of a giant worm going after racers in an off-road race is a good one, but it's another episode that isn't as interesting as its premise. The worm worshippers are annoying and get in the way, and the race lacks some intensity, but at least this oversized monster fits in better with the environment. Number 36 is Lights, Camera, Mayhem. As someone who is attending film school, watching Scooby Doo episodes that take place on a film set always annoys me. Although I'm aware of how unrealistic other episodes can be, the film ones always annoy me the most with just how incredibly inaccurate they are. The Faceless Phantom is one of the better monsters from the series, but that's about the only bright spot in this episode. 35 is Riva Ross Ragus. Some people are a fan of the ghost of Rufus Raucus, but I'm not one of them. Nothing about him makes him feel like a ghost or a monster. The mystery is uninteresting to me, but it has enough going for it to beat out the other episodes below it. Number 34 is E-Scream. Horde monsters are another thing that I'm not the biggest fan of in Scooby Doo. The reveal is a cool twist, but the gang feels too reactive in this episode. Wherever they are, their Awesomons show up and start wreaking havoc. There just isn't enough investigating in this one. Number 33 is New Mexico Old Monster. This was another one that had a big impact on me as a kid. While the Wukumi is an oversized monster, it's utilized so well in this episode. The fact that it would pick people off of the Misa and carry them away freaked me out a bit when I watched it for the first time. And making the gang have to climb up the Misa, forcing themselves to be exposed to the giant bird, is a great idea. Unfortunately, this is another episode too light on mystery and suspects. Number 32 is Homeward Hound. I love the dog napping subplot in this episode, but that's about it. There isn't enough suspects. The dog napping plot, while great, takes up so much space in the episode that it feels light on the mystery portion, and the dog show is also underutilized as a setting. Number 31 is Diamonds Are a Ghoul's Best Friend. I have a lot of nostalgia for this episode, but I've got to admit this is another one of the weaker efforts from Season 3. I love the Russian hockey setting, and the inclusion of Brett Hull is cool. The Frozen Fiend is another one of the show's best designed monsters, and I enjoyed the splitting up section where everyone followed a different suspect. However, the suspects weren't very compelling to me, and the culprit felt like their motive was much too weak. Because this is also a pretty standard Scooby Doo mystery, there will be ones above it that I'm just more interested in rewatching. Number 30 is Toy Scary Boo. The most interesting thing about this episode is the setting of them all at night. It makes for a compelling mystery and brought me one of my favorite characters from the show, Officer Claphammer.
How do you civilians know about that?
Mr. Bottomcheck told us.
That Bottomcheck has loose lips. And you know what they say about loose lips.
Yeah, they're great for fitting around a triple-decker veggie club.
The biggest issue I have with the episode is that the toys are another uninteresting mob villain. However, when an episode this good is only number 30, you know that this is going to be a good series. Number 29 is Recipe for Disaster. This is probably the most standard mystery in the series. It's not bad, but it isn't great either. It would have probably been down to 33 or 32 if not for the unexpectedly amazing chase. This came out of nowhere for me. Here I was, thinking that Big Scare and the Big Easy had easily the best chase scene of the series, and then I watched this one, and you know what, I think it might be better. Each member of the gang gets their chance to shine at a part in the chase, and the music is amazing and ties the whole thing together beautifully. Number 28 is The Unnatural. A lot of people are going to think this is a little low for this episode, and I'm as surprised as you that I didn't love it as much as I expected to upon rewatch. Of course, the monster is a standout and one of the best from the series, but besides him, nothing else about the episode makes me remember it. As far as baseball episodes go, I've seen it before in Scooby Doo. I also felt like the culprit was thrown in as a potential suspect too late, so I felt a little blindsided by that. Number 27 is High Tech House of Horrors. This was actually the What's New Scooby Doo episode that frightened me the most as a kid. The bad things occurring felt much more dangerous in this one than if it was just a monster attacking people. Like at the beginning, when it looks like the girl's actually gonna drown. The criticisms I have for this episode are directed mainly towards the ending. It felt very cheap that they were able to just defeat the house by simply ignoring it for a few seconds. And I also feel like the suspects were weaker as well. I just couldn't see any of them being the culprit. Number 26 is Safari So Goody. Are the demon animals kind of dumb? Yes, they are. But this episode feels like one of the most iconic ones from the season for some reason. While all the pieces may not completely fit together, I still enjoy all of the memorable parts from this episode, like the police officer and his monkey, the overly nice couple, and the sounds that indicate the demon animals are around. Plus, the chase scene is awesome. Number 25 is A Scooby Doo Halloween. Here, we have another one of the horde monsters I'm not a fan of. The scarecrows take their time to become established as the monsters of the episode, but when they do, it's appropriately eerie. Unfortunately, they no longer become threatening when it's revealed that they are robots and can easily be disposed of. I think this episode would be a lot higher if the small town atmosphere had been developed better, but as it is, it doesn't stand out. The kiss chase was cool though. Number 23 is Pompeii and Circumstance. Upon rewatch, this one got bumped up a bit.
It's Daphne, and she's got road rage!
The zombie gladiator may not be a creative monster, but he feels like there's some character to him. The Italian setting was one of the better international locations the gang travels to, and the mystery is solid. That's as far as this episode goes though. Number 23 is Space Ape at the Cape. The growing alien and potential alien disease were cool additions, and even though the lab environment could have been fleshed out more, it had its positives. The fact that the culprit was someone that Velma idolized though makes this episode more than just your standard mystery. Number 22 is Block Long Hong Kong Terror. I really like a lot about this episode. The nighttime warehouse settings, the mystery with the toy company, and Shaggy's mysterious rescuer all make this a memorable episode. However, the rest of the locations were subpar, and some characters didn't get as much screen time as they should have. There should have been more character development and less monster encounters. Also, the chase scene is my favorite of the season. Number 21 is Reef Grief. The Australian sandcastle building contest is an amazing setting for this episode. It also weaves an interesting mystery with the sandcastle builders getting sucked under the sand and becoming sand drip zombies. I also like how the coral creature wasn't used often, but just as a catalyst to shake things up. I loved the strained relationship between Smash Mouth and the sandcastle builders, as well as Shaggy and Scooby and their sand builder pal. However, there is a lack of suspects, as well as an incomplete feeling end to the mystery. The unmasking of Rama Yam feels out of the blue, and I wish it had been foreshadowed. Number 20 is Go West Young Scoob. I wasn't a fan of this episode when I was younger, but I've really come around to it. It's clearly super inspired by Westworld and doesn't play at all like a typical Scooby-Doo mystery. In fact, this is probably the most oddball of all of the What's New Scooby-Doo episodes. The mystery is really compelling. You don't know who's a robot and who isn't, or if someone's controlling the outlaw robots or not. Unfortunately, the ending isn't super cathartic, as it can get a little too confusing. Number 19 is Roller Coaster Ride. The premise for this episode is great. A monster is sabotaging all of the rides at an amusement park. I think this concept is executed well, only lacks some mystery to it. The suspects aren't compelling. It's very obvious that the culprit is Terry because the episode tries so hard to make you believe that it's Chris. Also, I get really bothered with their explanation that the rides weren't actually sabotaged, only made to look that way. Are you kidding me? Does this look not sabotaged to you? The visuals as well feel a lot less detailed than the other episodes, as if this one didn't get as much development. Number 18 is a Scooby Doo Valentine. This episode had potential to be my favorite. It features the gang coming back to Coolsville after a long time on the road mystery solving, only for something to be not quite right. I think this episode has a really interesting environment, with Shaggy being revealed to have had a girlfriend. It's so refreshing to have the typical formula changed up in this one. Instead of monsters and ghosts, the villains are the gang themselves, and the love theme is utilized great in the final reveal. Although I think it's a bit odd that the fake gang has superhuman abilities, my one real complaint would be that the episode felt too short. Because so much time was taken in the beginning to set up the mystery environment, it made it feel like the culprits were caught rather quickly. It should have made this one a 30-minute episode. Number 17 is Gentlemen Start Your Monsters. Love the monster in this episode. It's rare that you'll see monsters that actually taunt their victims, but the skeleton driver does it fantastically.
How's the car, Fred?
Fantastic, Daff. It's as smooth as...
Hello, friend. Or should I say, goodbye?
Daphne? Your voice sounds kind of funny. Do you have a cold or... Oh, gee.
There's an interesting mystery with what's going on with the two kids and their dad, and while it's a pretty standard episode, it does everything very well. Number 16 is Simple Plan and the Invisible Madman. This is a wild episode. The monster is unlike anything that's been in Scooby Doo before, and the location feels appropriately isolating, and there's a fun guest appearance from Simple Plan. I thought the twist worked pretty well and the chase is great. My only criticism would be with the invisible monster. It was executed, I think, as well as it could have, but there just isn't much threatening about something that you can't see in Scooby Doo. Number 15 is Camp Come On, I Wanna Scare Ya. This was one of my childhood favorites. I love the toxic monster and how the lore behind him is told as a spooky camp story. It's nice that Shaggy and Scooby get to strike out on their own for a while as camp counselors, allowing the other characters to get more of a spotlight. The kids that just want to help their terrified camp counselors are sweet characters that you really root for, and the characters you're supposed to dislike, like the camp director and Dennis, fit in perfectly with the story. While the mystery is pretty weak and it feels like too short of an episode, it's still a ton of fun. Number 14 is Mummy Scares Best. This is one that's similar to Camp Come On, I Wanna Scare Ya in that it has a weak mystery, but it is so much fun that fact doesn't bother me too much. The difference with this one is that while it lacks a lot of good side characters like Camp Come On, I Wanna Scare Ya, it has more memorable scenes, as well as a strong horror streak to it. The Mummy is one of the series' most terrifying monsters, and his appearances are always memorable. Number 13 is Uncle Scooby in Antarctica. One thing that you'll start to notice is that I'm biased towards the snowy environments. I don't feel biased, but the proof is in my ratings. The fish monster is very unique looking, and the knowledge that he could pull the gang under the ice makes him all the more threatening. The scene that pushes it up from being a solid episode up to a great one is when Scooby passes out under the water while he's trying to save his little penguin friend, and the monster rises up from the depths to pull Scooby under for good. It's a shockingly good scene that has no business being in a What's New Scooby Doo episode, but I will take it. Number 12 is Ready to Scare. I love the Paris location and the fact that we're graced with a bonus chase in this one. The mystery feels a bit odd because of who the culprit ends up being, and even though on rewatch it doesn't quite feel like it connects in a super satisfying way, I still think that the fun environments and interesting characters make this episode one of the best in the series. Number 11 is the San Fran Psycho. Despite missing out on the top 10, this episode is a great demonstration of why What's New Scooby Doo is so great. The opening attack by the monster is chilling, and nearly every aspect of this episode is very well done. My only complaint that knocks it out of the top 10 is the Red Theater Troupe. They're annoying characters that don't add much to the mystery. They remind me of those earthworm worshippers from the Fast and the Wormiest. Number 10 is She Sees Sea Monsters by the Seashore. The mystery is strong. Moto Shandu is a fantastic monster considering I'm not a fan of the bigger ones, but the big reason why this is so high on my list is how tense some of the moments can get. What's New Scooby Doo can get darker, but few moments reach the level of intensity as waiting for Moto Shandu to rise out of the water. Number 9 is Farmed and Dangerous. Loved the mystery with this one. The whole idea of the multi-flavored popcorn is so out there, but it totally works. The Demon Farmer is one of my personal favorite monsters from the series, and the showdown he has at the end with his tractor versus the Mystery Machine is epic, though unfortunately a little short. The farm setting I also think could have been utilized a bit better, but because of how well everything is integrated into this mystery, this episode definitely makes it into my top 10. Number 8 is WrestleManiacs. The Titanic twist is another one of my favorite monsters from the series. In comparison to Farmed and Dangerous, the setting and characters are more memorable, though the mystery isn't as great. The Titanic twist is definitely one of the more powerful monsters in the series, as he manages to take out wrestlers and toss around Shaggy and Scooby. This one also has a great ending with the cage match, a finale that they also used with the WrestleMania movie. Overall, this is a really well-rounded episode. Number 7 is It's Mean, It's Green, It's the Mystery Machine. When I watched this episode for the first time about a year ago, I disliked it. It was one of my least favorite episodes from the series. Well, my rewatch definitely changed that. On my first viewing, I couldn't get over the Mystery Machine being the villain. I do still find it one of the weaker monsters from the series, but I give it a pass because haunted cars are awesome. The mystery is the strong point of the episode though. While Farmed and Dangerous did have a really unique story, It's Mean, It's Green, It's the Mystery Machine's plot revolves around the characters more, which I love. Getting a backstory for the Mystery Machine certainly isn't necessary, but I give this one a pass because it creates a compelling mystery out of it. Number 6 is 3Destruction.
Wow, these people sure know how to throw a dinner.
That's good, because I sure know how to catch one.
To me, out of a series of well-rounded episodes, this one is probably the most well-rounded. A solid mystery? Check. A great location? Check. Fun and memorable characters? Check. The only weaker point in this episode is the monster, but I tend to give it a pass when monsters are weaker if they are integrated well, which the dinosaur spirit is. This is a personal childhood favorite of mine, so while I may be biased, this is my list, and for me, 3Destruction is an episode that I feel so comfortable watching and I love it every single time. Number 5 is Big Scare and the Big Easy. This episode is just steeped in the New Orleans setting, and I love it. The music, the characters, and the places the gang goes all fully immerse the audience into the setting. That's this episode's greatest strength, but it still has a good mystery, and that structure reminds me of an original Where Are You episode. And you know we've got to talk about that chase. The Man with the Hex is a magnificent song, and even though a lot of the chase takes part on water slides, it's still incredibly entertaining. Number 4 is A Scooby Doo Christmas. Easily my favorite Christmas Scooby Doo episode. Even thinking about it makes me grin. The Headless Snowman isn't the most unique design out there, but he has so much personality that you've gotta love him. He feels extra evil, especially when he's tearing down the chimneys. I realize that this is heavily inspired by Sleepy Hollow and the story of the Headless Horseman, but as with Go West Young Scoob, I'm fine if an episode takes a lot of inspiration from a popular form of media and puts a Scooby-Doo spin on it. The mystery of the hidden gold bricks is told perfectly. I feel like it's one of the few episodes that succeeds by including both incredibly silly and dark moments. The villain being completely forgiven at the end because it's Christmas does definitely feel sappy and not really earned. But the whole forgiving in the name of Christmas message does cover it up decently. Number 3 is a terrifying round with a menacing metallic clown. This episode plays with the Scooby-Doo tropes the right way.
How will we lure the monster?
Scooby and Velma will act as bait.
I love it whenever Shaggy has some of his few heroic moments, and giving him this skill of mini-putting really makes that believable. Speaking of, the Putt-Putt Championship Tournament is one of those settings that are just crazy enough to work. The mystery keeps you on your toes, and we haven't even talked about the clown yet. Giving him tie-ins as something that freaks Velma out is great, and the way he eats people is surprisingly dark. Fantastic episode. Number 2 is Fright House of a Lighthouse. This is the darkest episode in What's New Scooby Doo, in my opinion. The creepy keeper is just terrifying. What makes him so great is how he stays in one place for the most part. When you know he's haunting the lighthouse every time the gang goes in there, the tension builds because you know he will attack. That's why the skeleton boat is needed, to require the gang to go investigate somewhere that isn't the lighthouse. But when they do get to the lighthouse, those scenes have an extra element of savagery to them. It's probably because the lighthouse is such a confined setting, but that it's just great. Verona Dempsey is a character you love to hate, so it's satisfying to see her taken down. Because of how high quality this episode is, I'm sure it's difficult to imagine an episode beating this one. In fact, you may be wondering which one you're forgetting because you don't remember my favorite episode. But number 1 is There's No Creature Like Snow Creature. Why this episode? What makes this episode better than any of the other in the What's New Scooby Doo series? The monster is admittedly pretty average, and the setting doesn't stand out as one of the best snowy settings. But what I love about this episode are the intangibles. Maybe it's just because I've seen this episode countless times as a kid, but more than any other episode, this one just feels right. Every little sound effect, the cue, every time the snow monster is coming, all feel like they should be there. You want to talk about interesting things that happen in this episode? Fred actually breaks his leg. Velma has a cold. Things that real people are afflicted with. So Daphne has to step up and look for clues alone. That moment where Fred knows the snow creature is coming and desperately tries to warn Daphne, amazing. The chase song is rad, and there are some really funny moments in this one too. The monster feels like it shows up the perfect amount, not too much and not too little. The mystery is good, made more interesting by the mystery man the gang sees on the slope but can never catch. Although there are a lot of episodes that I've seen many times that give me that nostalgic comfort, There's No Creature Like Snow Creature tops that list because everything about that episode just makes sense to me. Hopefully that explanation made sense to you guys. Thank you for your patience as this video took a lot of time to make. The next video in this series will be for Shaggy and Scooby Doo Get a Clue. Be sure to stay tuned for that one. I'd appreciate it if you subscribed, considering you've made it this far in the video. Have a great day.